We're going to take a few minutes to look at how you can take tests and quizzes that you've used in the past and use them to compile to make a end of the semester or end of the year final. So I'm here in my Schoology course, and as the semester is approaching to an end, I'd like to make me a final that has questions from all the different tests that I've used this semester. You can see that my Chapter 5 test is here on my main page, but all the other tests and quizzes are somewhere in folders in this course. So instead of trying to dig and figure out where they're at, what I can do is I can come up here to all materials and do tests and quizzes, and you can see here's all the tests and quizzes for this grading period, and you can see that it actually even shows me what folder that they're located in case I want to go there for some reason. But what I can do is I can take the test questions from these, create a test bank, and what I can do is when I create my new final, I can pull from those test banks the questions for their assessment. First thing I need to do is go to my resources. So you're going to have your test bank inside of your resources. You can see that here's all my different collections. This is like those file folders I have inside my file cabinet. And so you can see these are all the materials for different courses that I might teach. So I'm going to go ahead and click the collection box, and I'm going to give my collection a name. Now, one of the reasons that I'm making a collection and I'm not wanting it to be in my resources, my home resources, is because if I'm putting all this work in, I may have a co-teacher I want to be able to share this with. I can do that when I'm inside of a collection, but as we all know, we cannot share our home. That is for us only. Now that I have this collection box created, I'm going to go back to my course and we'll go find my tests and quizzes. And so let's go to Chapter 1. And so here's all my questions that I used for that Chapter 1 test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Options, and I'm going to do Add Questions to Bank. So I'm just going to do all of them because that's what I need. All right, so now we're going to have to answer some questions. New question bank. And we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to call this Chapter 1. So next year, if I want to add some more questions to this bank and maybe run all my tests and quizzes from a bank, I can do that. So the next question is going to be what collection, and so I'm going to scroll through here and find that U.S. history. All right, and I don't have any folders inside of my U.S. history, so I'm going to leave that alone and add questions. And you can see Schoology gave me that little box here saying it was successfully done. So we'll go back to that resource section and go to U.S. history. And you can see now there is that Chapter 1 test bank with all the different questions. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to my course. And I'm going to do the same process for chapters 2, 4, and 5. Now you'll notice 3 is not there. 3 is that assessment tool that I used, and so I can't do the same process right now for that. Same thing, options, add to question bank. Yes, I want all the questions. All right, so now it's going to say select a bank. So I have U.S. history, I have Chapter 1, but I want this to go in Chapter 2. So I'm still going to do new bank. I'm going to call it Chapter 2, find my collection. I don't want it in a folder. Add questions. So now let's go back and look again so you can see the organization and what this is going to look like. I've got my Chapter 1 questions, my Chapter 2 questions. Now this just works for me. You know, if you want all your questions in one big bank, great. But I'm thinking about down the road, and I know next year when I create my tests for Chapter 1, I'm going to pull those questions. And the thing is that you may want to, now that you have a test bank, you might want to add some questions. So I can, at any time as I'm working on things, come in here to Chapter 1, and I can add a question right here. And so instead of having 20 questions, I may have 25 next year. So anyway, so I'm going to go back and do this for the rest of the chapters. Now we can create our end of the semester or end of the year test. So I'm going to do tests and quizzes, and I'm going to give it a name. Add our due date and grade category. And then we're going to create. All right, so now in my assessment, maybe there are a few questions that I know I want everybody to have. And then the rest of the questions I want to pull from that pool of questions that we had earlier. So I can come in here and I can create the questions that I want everyone to have. And again, I'm just going to go up here to add question, and I can do true, false, multiple choice, ordering, all those things. Doesn't matter, and Schoology will assign those questions to everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. Alright, so now that I have 4 questions that everybody's going to get, now I want to start pulling in some questions from that test bank that we made. So I'm going to do add a question from question bank. And so I can do individual, which means if I know exactly what question I want from a test bank, I can do this. Let's say I really want this one, and I can go ahead and say how many points it's going to be, and it added that question. Another option is the same thing. We'll go to add question, add from question bank, but this time we're going to do random, chapter 1, and it's going to tell me you got 20 questions in this bank. How many questions do you want from here? I'm going to say 5. And then it says how many points do I want them to be. And so I know that most of these questions are multiple choice, true, false, those kinds of things. So they're probably just going to be 1. I can make them whatever I want. And so then you can see randomly questions 6 through 10 are going to come from this bank, and total of 5 points. And so then maybe I want a few from chapter 2. So we'll just come here. 8, and it'll be 1 point each. And so again, randomly through that bank, it's going to be pulling those questions. One more time, let's do something a little bit different. We'll do random, and we'll go back to here, but this time I'm going to say chapters 4 and 5. Let's see what it does. So you can see I could have done this for all my chapters at one moment. So from chapter 4, I'm going to take 13 questions, a point apiece, and we'll take 15 from here, a point apiece. So now you can see these are the random questions that's pulling from test bank from chapter 1. This is pulling from chapter 2, and then chapter 4 and chapter 5. Because remember, chapter 3 is that assessment, and it can't talk to the test and quizzes. And then if I have a few more questions that I want everybody to have, I can come right back in here again and add those individually, and they will fall down here at the bottom of my test and quiz. Something that you can do with this that you might be interested in is I can come in here and I can put a check mark in the box, and I can come over here to the gray gear and do enable question tracking. So what it's going to do is it's going to track the questions, and it's going to kind of make sure that it doesn't always pull the same 5 questions when I do this. So I'm going to enable that, and you can see now there's that little icon here telling me what it's doing. And then if I decide that this is not something I like, I can always come in here and disable it. So now that we know how to do this with tests and quizzes, let's talk about assessments. So assessments is going to be different. At this time, I cannot take my questions from my assessment and throw it into a test bank, just like we did with the test and quizzes. That has not been a feature that's been created yet in Schoology. Now, what you can do, if you like the assessments better than test and quizzes, what you can do is in your resources, come in here and add a resource and add an item bank, and I can create my questions here inside my resources. Okay, I can put all my different questions in here, and then when I go into my assessment, okay, as I'm creating my assessment, you can see over here on the left hand side it has add from item bank, and then I would say personal. We'll go find that U.S. history, chapter 3, but you can see I don't have any questions in there. So at this time, creating a bank that you can pull random questions works best with test and quizzes than it does assessment. Hopefully that feature will be created soon. Something you can do is, we know that that is a test quiz folder. I can click that gray gear. You can see up here I can convert it to an item bank. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to take my test and quiz questions and convert it into an item bank, which then I could use in an assessment. But At the time of filming this video, it's having some known issues, and so this may or may not work for you. Schoology is aware of it and they're working on it, but that could be an option to use in the future. Another option that at the time of filming this video is not working correctly, but again, this could be an option for you in the future. This is a test and quiz. If I want to get to the point where I move everything over to assessments, I can go here. Here's my Chapter 5 test. I can go to that gray gear. I can convert it to an assessment. It's going to take that whole test and quiz and change it into the assessment format. But again, at the time of filming this video, it's not acting properly and Schoology is working on it. Hopefully this helps you think about some ways that you can take some of the materials that you've already used in this semester to create a test bank for your semester or end of the year final.